what we're dealing with in Dallas County is part of a broader pattern of trying to disenfranchise Black and brown voters across the state of Texas that began with the gerrymandering of our congressional districts. As Jasmine knows, our districts were redrawn at the command of the White House to try and eliminate the voices of communities like those here in North Texas. The district that I am running in right now, this newly drawn 33rd district, should not exist. A Trump-appointed judge said that it was a racial gerrymander, and yet here we are still running in these districts. Because the Dallas County Republican Party decided that they wanted to continue to restrict and make it more difficult for folks to vote, we have had chaos across our community here in North Texas, as folks have gone to their normal polling place and been turned away, told to go somewhere else. Working folks who only have a certain amount of time to drop off their kids, get to the job, do the things they have to do to take care of their family, are being redirected and oftentimes leading to confusion. This is outrageous. It's unacceptable. And we should all recognize what is happening here. That we've had hundreds of reports of voters turned away from their polling place. And as somebody who was a voting rights lawyer before I ever ran for Congress or served in office, and I know Jasmine knows this as well from her background in civil rights, that sometimes a new law can be worse than a bad law. When folks don't know what to expect, when they don't know where to go or who to turn to, we end up in a situation like this. So here's where things stand at this moment, and then I'll turn it over to Congresswoman Crockett. The polls have been extended in Dallas County until 9 p.m. I encourage every voter in Dallas County to get in line by 7 p.m. to make sure that your vote counts. Should you get in line after that, though, stay in line. Cast your provisional ballot, and we will make sure and do everything we can that your vote is one that counts. We have been given an opportunity thanks to a judge's order. I was ready to bring a lawsuit to try and extend this. Luckily, it was already done. To have a couple more hours to try and deal with this chaos. So to folks here in Dallas County, to my fellow North Texans, I say make sure that you find your polling place at dallascountyvotes.org. Look up your new polling place, again, at dallascountyvotes.org. And make sure, if you can, to be in line by 7, but if you don't, we'll still fight to make sure your vote is going to be counted. And we'll be there till 9 o'clock. We are in this fight not just for our elections, but for the right to vote in this state and the democracy that is at risk in this country. This is bigger than just what's happening in Dallas County or just the chaos that we've seen today. It is a pattern and one that we're going to fight against. Congressman Crockett.
Thank you so much. My heart is breaking. I've got people that are sending me emails. I have video recordings of voters that are crying and hurt. None of this should have happened. Let's talk about the many failures. Let's talk about what was intentional. Number one, the Republicans only did this to intentionally disenfranchise and confuse voters. That is number one. But number two, while many people were showing up to the polling locations, they were told things such as, you can't provide a provisional ballot. Now that is exactly when you would provide a provisional ballot. If you are saying, this is my polling location, and they're saying, no, it's not, you should, at a very minimum, be able to cast your provisional ballot. We have heard countless stories of people being told you can't. Then we hear stories of people saying, we're trying to go to dallascountyvotes.org, and the website keeps crashing. Then we're hearing stories of, if the website is up, it's giving us the wrong location to go to. So thank you to Cardall Coleman, who is the chair of the Democratic Party in Dallas County, because he, along with myself and Colin Allred, we all understood what should happen next, which was litigation. And so we were prepared and we were about to file when we received word that an order had been signed by Judge Stacey Williams. Judge Williams signed off on that order for Dallas County, but I want to be clear about this as someone who is running statewide, and frankly, as someone who is concerned that this will become the norm for the Republicans as they are understanding that Democrats are fed up right now, and right now Democrats are outvoting Republicans. They not only did this in Dallas County, they did it in Williamson County. Williamson County right now, from what I understand, has not been granted any relief. I am here to say that it is wrong for it to be done to anyone, a Democrat or a Republican. But the Republicans didn't even have enough sense or enough courage to go out there and try to get a court order on behalf of their constituents, the Republicans. So these hours are extended for the Democrats. Now, the other issue that we have heard all over happening today was that these voting machines, that they are down. I just received an email right before I walked up. It was actually out of Tarrant County, of a woman saying there was only one Democratic machine at the location that she went to in Tarrant County, and there's 12 or 13 Republican machines. Down in Lancaster, I've been told that they've had machines down all day, and ever since they've called first thing in the morning to get more machines, they finally did bring some at some point in time, but those machines were Republican machines, not Democratic machines. Listen, this may be a very close election, and it may hinge on who was allowed to vote or who wasn't allowed to vote in Dallas County. But I'm here to say, regardless as to whether or not it's close or not, this is wrong. If one person has the right to vote and they weren't allowed to cast their vote, we should all be standing together, Democrats, Republicans, and we should all be raising hell. But unfortunately, this was always the plan. And so I am grateful for this court order, and as Congressman Allred has already stated, we encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. We cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded, because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote, stand in line, wait in line, and if it means that I gotta come out there with you to wait with you, I will do that. And I promise you that going forward, especially as we go into November, we will make sure that this does not happen in the general election.
Any questions?
So the time is extended, but is the damage done? You mentioned the working person who has that short amount of time to vote.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
In the context of voting rights, we know that a voter turned away is likely someone who does not vote that day. And there's a lot of reasons for it. It can be frustration, it can be their schedules, and so a lot of damage has been done. But I agree with Congresswoman Crockett that our message, I think, to folks is that your vote is so powerful, they're trying to take it away. Don't let them. And stand in line if you need to. We'll be there with you. We'll fight as we were fighting in court to get these hours extended. And this is an opportunity now that if you did miss that window, perhaps this morning when you were going to do your drive to work voting, that now you can go maybe this evening. I've got young kids. I understand how difficult that is. But our message to folks is this is an opportunity for us, at least in Dallas County, for Democrats in Dallas County, to have a couple of extra hours to try and do what we can to rectify this, and to take this as an example of a fight that we have to have for November, because we cannot have a repeat of this.
Yeah.
Do you guys by chance know when the last time Dallas County had to extend a voting location hours by?
We've had it happen before, often because of machines or running out of ballots. In fact, the election administration, for me, when I used to work in this, was often the most frustrating part. And this is, I think, also intentional, that we don't put enough state resources into running our elections. They don't have enough translators at polling sites. They don't have enough Spanish language ballots or other language ballots at polling sites. It would make it difficult for voters with disabilities to vote. And I think a lot of this is intentional. So this is not without precedent that we've had to have an extension of the polling hours. I don't remember it being done because of one party's decision to throw this into chaos like this, though.
Congressman Crockett, your district obviously spends a lot of Dallas County organization support for you. If turnout turns out to be quite low in this district, do you still respect the results of the primary today?
I don't know what you mean by respect the results. I definitely don't plan to engage in a January 6th, if that is what you're talking about. You know, listen, if it is clear that this is a very close race and potentially this race was impacted directly by this, I'll be disappointed. But curing this issue after the fact is almost impossible, which is why, you know, as trained lawyers, we were like, it can't just be enough that we say, well, this is a problem and just stand there. I mean, when you're looking for leadership, you need people that have skill sets that understand the importance of what's happening in that moment. And that is why it was a matter of, okay, if we need to file this litigation ourselves, because time was ticking. If you file after the polls are closed, it's too late. So, you know, this was filed in a timely fashion. We have been waiting, we have been getting stories, we have been collecting evidence, because those are the things that you may need, especially if you have some pushback that is coming your way. But at the end of the day, there is no way to cure it after the fact. And so ultimately, would I be disappointed if for some reason it seems like this was a very close race and a lot of people that I would assume were supportive of me were disallowed? Absolutely. I can tell you that we have no idea how many people are being turned away. But as I was at Oaklawn, I can tell you that as at least in the time that there were observers there from the media, it was basically 1-to-1. One person goes in, they vote, one person comes out, they're not allowed to vote. That is significant. I mean, right now, I think we are close to 90,000 votes or so that have been cast at the last reporting. Just imagine if in the entire county, we've had 1-to-1 be turned away. That's 90,000 votes. I mean, we're talking about significant numbers. So it is my hope that, you know, I'm liked somewhere other than Dallas County. But it's also my hope that going forward, we can recognize the fractures in what took place and we can prevent them on the front end. One of the things that is so frustrating for me is that we tend to be more reactive than proactive. And so I'm happy that the party got to this right before us because we were about to hit that file button. But I'm still very hopeful. I have traveled this state. I have talked to people both in Dallas County and otherwise. And I am just frustrated both for the people in Williamson County as well as Dallas County, because they are entitled to cast their vote for whomever it is that they feel like should be representing them.
We have time for 2 more questions, so if you haven't asked a question, please ask one right now.
Has this ever happened before where we have the parties doing separate elections like this in this district or any district in Texas for that matter?
The way to do
Yeah.
It's-
Go ahead.
What I'll say is that, I mean, our primaries are always separate,
Yeah.
right? They are, I mean, we have closed primaries, so you choose Democrat or Republican. What was different was the amount of influence that the Republicans were allowed to have over our primary. I was pretty frustrated when this first came about because I said, if y'all want your voters to do that, great. But that shouldn't impact Democratic voters. And so they did it more so to impact us. They didn't really care about what was going on their side. So I think that that's really what's new. Having issues with the administration of the election, we've seen that far too often.
So the claim, though, here from Alan West, the chair of the Dallas GOP party, was that this was to prevent voter fraud. That's outrageous. all this has done is create chaos both for our voters and for theirs.
Yeah,
And it's anti-democratic.
yeah.
We have a long history of this in our state, though, whether it's this or even going back to our issues with having full inclusion in primaries at all within this state. This is, to me, another step in a long line of trying to make it more difficult to vote and gaming with primaries. And I've seen this over the course of our history in our state.
Congresswoman, you said that one of your frustrations with the Democratic Party is being reactive, not proactive. So what did you do for the general election to ensure that this doesn't happen?
Yeah, and that was just a general statement, just to be clear. Because obviously, our Democratic Party chair got this done before the close of the polls, so I just want to clarify that. I do think that going into November, we have to take stock of exactly what's happened in our primary. I think that we also need to think about the warnings that have been issued by this administration. They've talked about federalizing the elections. They've talked about an executive order. They've talked about sending ICE out to polling locations to intimidate people. So I do think that we are going to have to link arms with our civil rights organizations, ACLU, NAACP, LULAC, Democracy Forward, and so forth. And we are going to have to get court orders before we even get to voting about what is and is not allowed at the polling locations in this state. I also think that from a DC standpoint, we need to go ahead and apply pressure as it relates to making sure that that SAVE Act does not go forward. That was another point of confusion that the Republicans injected, because all the headlines that came from y'all, God bless you, were the SAVE Act passed. Now, if you don't read the entire article, then you may believe that it actually passed into law, when instead it passed the House. It hasn't passed the Senate. So we were still even having to explain to people that's not currently the law of the land. So I do think that Democrats need to be working from now until November to, number one, make sure that there's pressure applied so that it doesn't become the law of the land right before the next election. And so we need to educate both our voters as well as theirs about the harm in such litigation or legislation. I also think that we need to go ahead and see if even in the minority, we can move forward with legislation that is pro-democracy legislation. I know a lot of people look at DC and they say the Democrats are in the minority, and we are. But in the minority, we were able to get the Epstein Transparency Act passed. That was because of outside pressure that was applied by the people. So I think that we need to do that work now and try to drum up as many people to get involved in this process so that hopefully we can, even in the minority, get something that looks like real democracy.
Real quickly, let me last, if I may. Yes, thank you. You mentioned that some voters coming today had to fill out provisional ballots through the change location. Do you have anything you want to say to them about what that process is going to be like and how to make sure we'll find out if their vote gets counted?
Yeah, so folks should know that there is a process for curing a provisional ballot. And it's difficult when it's done in this manner because it's regarding your polling place, and so this is more difficult. But I think what the Congresswoman and I are committed to doing is helping anybody who wants to try and make sure that we'll help them try to cure their ballot. There's a set deadline of days after the election for it to be done within. Usually has to be done at the
Central
at the voting
Elections
election center, and it's a little bit arcane and difficult. But to any folks here in North Texas who feel strongly about this, I encourage you to reach out to us. I've done this in my own personal capacity as a lawyer several times. We'll do anything we can to provide you with that information, and in fact, we'll try and put it out tonight how you can cure your ballots.